My name is Cassie Zippe. I'm from Western Kentucky University. I want to share a reading strategy with you for reading textbooks that I use myself. Now, this strategy takes some time, but the bottom line is that you will have an excellent understanding of the material and you will have created some study notes for yourself for future use when you're studying for an exam. This strategy is from a former professor of mine. His name is Dr. Marino Alvarez and his colleague Robert Ackerman. It's called SQ5R, and it's based on the old SQ3R strategy that's been around for nearly 50 years. The S of SQ5R stands for survey, and for surveying, you want to take a look at if it's a chapter, let's say, as an example, you want to take a look at the chapter as a whole. Look at the title of the chapter. See if you can make some connections through your own experiences, prior experiences, your own existing knowledge. Look at the headings and the subheadings, vocabulary if there is any, principles if those are presented, questions. Sometimes the textbook authors publish questions that go along with their reading material, their textbooks. Take a look at the introduction to the chapter, the conclusion or the summary of the chapter, and get a good idea then of an overview of what the chapter is going to be about. The Q of SQ5R stands for question. You might think of questions as you are surveying the chapter, or you might use the questions that the authors have created. Or a third thing that you might do is convert the headings and the subheadings into questions. Doing this is very important because it gives you a purpose when you're reading. Now, I have one of my textbooks with me today. It's called Literate Lives. And I turned to the first chapter, and it has all of those items that I mentioned to you that textbooks typically have. So I've surveyed it, and as I surveyed, I have done a combination of questions. I've used some that the authors came up with, but I've also created some of my own, and I have used the headings and subheadings to come up with questions. For instance, one of the subheadings in Chapter 1 of Literate Lives is Learning is about skill building, the industrial model. And I notice in the margin next to that, there is a definition of industrial model. I'll read that to you. A model of education which focuses on standardization. Well, that makes me curious. I'd like to know more about the industrial model. So my question that I've written down is, what are some other characteristics of an industrial model of education? Now that brings me to the first R of SQ5R. The first R is called reading. So now I'm going to read the chapter, read the material, searching for the answers to my questions. So in this subheading area where I'm reading about the industrial model, I've written down efficient, uniform, competitive, compliant, punctual, accountable, create uniformity across schools irrespective of the context in which they exist, and an assembly line. So as I was reading, you noted that I did the second R, R2 of SQ5R. The second R is recording, and here I wrote down answers to my question. The third R is recitation. And here I want to rephrase the answers that I've written down earlier into my own words. So I might write down in this category, one size fits all instruction, high stakes accountability. Then I would move on to the fourth R, which is reflection. This is a very critical step of SQ5R. In this step, I want to analyze what I've already read, try to make connections where I can, and apply what I've learned in my reading where I can. So now I'm going to make some notes about what I've read about the industrial model. what I'm going to say is this, or what I'm going to write in my notes is this. High stakes accountability reminds me of No Child Left Behind. That's very prevalent in our schools today. And all of the characteristics remind me of what I think is going on in schools today. I believe we do have an industrial model of schooling today. In many of the classrooms that I've visited, I've noted that lately. So that would be my reflection, the fourth R. The final step of SQ5R is called review. And in this step, I want to review my questions, my responses to the questions, and my reflections on the question. I've also created an excellent study tool for myself. I've condensed the chapter into important notes. And so now all I have to do when I want to review or study for an exam is to go back to those notes and take a look. I don't have to reread or anything else. It's right there for me. I've already created my study notes. I hope that you will find SQ5R as useful as I do.